I want to introduce tonight's guest, Matt Braun. That's it. No, that's it. That's it. That's it. Matt Braun is an independent game developer, designer, and consultant on mobile app development for large and mid-sized companies, and sometimes for startups. Many of you know Matt as the creator of the ever-popular iOS title, Sketch Party TV, which we're going to see tonight, actually. It's been covered by Mashable, Fortune, Gotta Be Mobile. Josh Smith, where are you? Josh Smith, Findlay, Ohio, writing for Gotta Be Mobile. Everybody say hi, Josh.
Hey, Josh.
And many other outlets. He's also the founder of Magnate Interactive. Here to catch us up on the current state of indie game publishing for the Apple ecosystem, among other things. Please help me welcome Matt Braun.
All right, so I've been on Apple's App Store for 7 years now, and as Gene mentioned, my name is Matt Braun. And tonight I wanted to share with you some of my, if this will advance, tales from the App Store trenches. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the apps that I've worked on, what I've learned making them. I'm also going to give you some of my thoughts on startups that are based around apps. Beforehand, someone was talking to me about that. I said I would get to it in my talk. My talks tend to have a lot of slides and move fairly quickly, so let's get going. Can we all agree on this? Now, I think the internet is amazing. Like many of you, I was born during a time before the internet. And I remember when you had to go to the library to get any information. When I was in junior high, the World Wide Web was a brand new thing. My wife, who actually was able to come tonight, recalls when we were in junior high in 1994. We weren't married then. And we were with a group at Cedar Point in line for the Gemini. And I was telling her about this incredible thing called the World Wide Web. And she thought I was crazy. She told me this later. But she did end up marrying me. So a bit more background info. Again, in 1994, a friend and I had developed a theory. We said that by the time we were in our careers, we'd be able to work on projects together from anywhere because of the internet. Now, we wanted to make video games and write software, but not necessarily have to be tied to any particular locale. Nothing against Toledo, because I'm still here. Now, fast forward 13 years, and feel free to hold them up or not, but show of phones, how many of you use an iPhone? Yeah, there's a lot. So the first iPhone was pretty incredible, if you can remember. It had maps. It had a full-fledged desktop-class web browser. It had cool built-in applications. It was an iPod, so you could listen to music. And you could even sometimes make calls with it. But there wasn't a good, some of you who had the first generation iPhone remember what I'm talking about. But there wasn't a good way for third parties to make software. So developers like myself were supposed to make web applications for the mobile Safari browser. And those were inherently limited. There was no camera. There was no GPS access. There's no ability to upload files. The performance really wasn't great. So don't get me wrong, it was miles ahead of what you could do on other smartphone web browsers, but the experience just did not compare to native software. And then, just a year later, Apple launched the App Store. And the App Store is one of those other things that I think is pretty incredible. It made it possible for even individuals and small teams to compete with huge software companies, and in many cases to out-innovate them. And independent developers were reportedly making a lot of money on the App Store too. So I thought, I have to make an app. And I began to learn how in the evenings after working at my day job. That's a direct quote. You can ask her. So I released my first iPhone app, Mash, in January of 2009. It has both a paid and free version, and the free version has been downloaded more than 14 million times. MASH is a kid's storytelling game. It asks you to fill in blanks for a series of questions, and then it tells you a story, like where you'll live, who you'll marry, and so on. And it's all just for fun, of course, but kids love it. It's originally a pen and paper game, and I made the very first app version. Now, around this time, the friend and I that I mentioned earlier are indeed working on the internet. We're living in different parts of the country, but we're not working together. And he's doing work that's very similar to what I was doing. We were doing contract work on Flash web applications. Don't hate. We end up reconnecting, and he decides to move back to the area from the East Coast. And I tell him about the App Store and how amazing it was. Now, he thinks I'm crazy too. You can notice a pattern. But I convince him to work on an app with me. And we end up making a game called Liberty Boom. Now, it was pretty fun and challenging. We worked really hard on the gameplay and graphics. It was reviewed well, but it did not do so well financially. I think it made maybe $1,000. But then this happened. In 2009, my MASH app was featured by Apple as an App Store essential, and the downloads skyrocketed. For a time, it became the #1 kids game, and it broke into the top 25 of all iPhone games. Now, this spike is from its first Christmas on the App Store. Now, my guess is that there were a lot of iPhones and iPod Touches given that year as Christmas gifts, and every year since then. The 2011 was a pretty incredible year for my business. The bulk of my income from my MASH apps was made during 2011. But 2011 was also one of the most stressful years for me personally. The friend I mentioned earlier and I had been working together on various contract and design and programming projects for about a year until he released his own MASH game. And there's a lot to this story. It's not the focus of this talk. But suffice to say, I was pretty upset and we had a falling out. So also in 2011, I had the privilege of paying a non-trivial amount of money to go to San Francisco to Apple's Worldwide Developer Conference. And that was the last year that Steve Jobs was at WWDC. So I feel like I was pretty lucky to be there. And nowadays, it's really hard to get a ticket. Apple has actually instituted a lottery to even have the privilege of paying that non-trivial amount of money. So the WWDC sessions that year that most interested me and had the greatest impact were about a then new technology called AirPlay mirroring. And if any of you have an Apple TV, I know a lot of you who have iPhones probably also have the Apple TV, you know what AirPlay mirroring is. Basically, for those of you that don't know, AirPlay mirroring allows you to show the contents of your iPad or your iPhone on your television screen without wires. And AirPlay has another trick called AirPlay Second Display that lets an app show something on the iPad and something different but related on the television. And so I had an epiphany while I was there. AirPlay would be perfect for a party game. Eventually I started work on a new app called Sketch Party TV. Sketch Party TV is a Pictionary-style party game. It runs on an iPad, shows something different on the television, and your teammates are supposed to guess what you're drawing in real time. So this is the ad, and I told Gene ahead of time, there's not going to be sound, I'm going to talk over it, that I produced to market Sketch Party TV back in 2012. I gathered up family, friends, people from my church. I don't think we actually played the game, but we had a good time making it look like we did. I honestly think the ad still holds up. It's a little outdated, it uses the old interface, things have changed since then. I'm planning to do a new video soon, but for now this one's pretty good.
That would be Don.
It's fun for all ages.
Yes. Including Don.
Whoever said that's a clam, that's exactly what I would do. We would fist bump at the end. All right, so just a quick tangent. Who else here uses Twitter? Yeah, some of you, good. So through Twitter, I've gotten to have great conversations with people around the world, including members of the press. As Gene mentioned, the press has been very kind to help me get the word out about Sketch Party TV. It's gotten great reviews and recommendations from many respected journalists and news outlets, especially in the Apple community. And let's see, it's got to be mobile on here. Oh gosh, I'm sorry. If I'd known you were coming tonight, I would have added it. I'm sorry, Josh. Oh, by the way, I'm Matt Braun on Twitter. That's okay, because I have a Google alert set up for Sketch Party TV and people are still writing about it. I found out that my game was used at a celebrity event in Las Vegas to play an onstage game show. So those are all famous NASCAR drivers, and Andrew can attest to that. And they're playing sketch party at something called the NASCAR Sprint Cup Champions Week. And there's Jeff Gordon in the upper right, and no one can seem to tell that he's drawing a frog. Looks like a frog to me. It's also used in classrooms around the world. Here it is being played in a first grade class in the Oberoi International School in Mumbai. Now, because of the press and my reputation as an app developer, I've gotten to work with some great companies and educational institutions on developing their own apps. I worked with the University of Toledo in 2010 to develop an iPad, an app for the first generation iPad. And here's some screenshots. It was also one of the first university apps to be built to run both on the iPad and the iPhone. I've also helped a few startups. I worked on building the Roost iPhone and iPad apps. Here's some screenshots. Roost is a company that makes push notifications easy for anyone to publish, and it was co-founded by someone right here in Toledo. I also had the pleasure of working on an app for a local medical startup called IrisSense, and I developed a prototype app to use the iPhone camera to automatically detect an eye in the frame. That's actually Jeff Bezos' eye from the cover of Wired magazine. That's what I used to test it. And then at a specific distance from the lens, automatically focus and take a crisp close-up photo. So that was used for non-invasive diabetes testing. And doing what I just described is actually harder to do than it sounds. Then in 2014, I started doing contract iOS and web development work for an agency called Universal Mind. I've been a long-time fan of this company because we both got our start around 2004 timeframe doing Flash web applications. Universal Mind does amazing work for some great companies, and some of them are listed up there. It includes Meyer, Sony, Ben & Jerry's. One of Universal Mind's directors and I are friends on Twitter. And so that's how I found out that they were looking for iOS developers. And for about 2 years, I worked on a suite of iOS and web apps for a company that makes DNA sequencing machines. I worked on their iPad app and their desktop web apps, and that was among the most fun and challenging products I've gotten to work on by virtue of the subject matter, but also by virtue of the caliber of the work. And then here's some screenshots of the iPad app. It's used by doctors and bioinformaticians to assess genetic data, and it's also been used to teach genetics at Harvard. I get to work with some of the most talented people in my industry, and I've never met any of them in person. All the people I work with live in different parts of the country: Boston, Richmond, Lexington, Chattanooga, Grand Rapids, Chicago, Denver, San Francisco, points in between. Some are even in Germany, some are in Canada, some are in Israel. Now, more recently, I joined the team that's working on the Meyer mobile apps. The subject matter of this app might not be as glamorous as genetics. We're not curing cancer or anything. But it's still a sophisticated app with plenty of moving parts and a lot of daily active users. I also get to work with a really great team, and it's given me a chance to learn about a new industry. A few of us, separately, teamed up to make an iOS app of our own. It's a gesture-based metronome app called Taptronome. We even made a version of Taptronome that runs on the Apple Watch. Here's a quick video of those apps in action. The Watch app acts as a remote for starting and stopping and changing settings for the iPhone app. You can tap directly on the tempo label, and it detects a beat from your taps. And you can dial in a tempo using the digital crown. You can also change various settings using Force Touch. We even worked on making it accessible to blind musicians using an Apple accessibility technology called VoiceOver. The app will use Siri's voice to read the tempo settings, and the whole app can be operated easily by vision-impaired people. I had several VoiceOver users beta test the app. These are people who happen to be blind musicians that I'd met via a friend on Twitter. Okay, so even though we made a great metronome app, in our opinion it's the best metronome app on the App Store, it hasn't found much of an audience. The App Store has completely changed since the Gold Rush days. It's simply not possible to make an app, just make an app, and find a business justification for its existence. And it hasn't been for some time. There's an app for that. Was a brilliant marketing campaign for the iPhone. But I think it also turned out to be a warning for App Store entrepreneurs. Essentially, at this point, there's probably already an app for nearly any app idea someone has. Especially if this idea is largely derivative or based on an existing app or service. For example, it's Airbnb for dogs. It's Uber for carriage rides. It's Vine for millennials. Sorry, millennials. I could go on. Now, last fall, Apple debuted the new Apple TV. I've been waiting for them to do this for years. It supports native apps. That means it's possible now to do things that I wasn't able to do with AirPlay mirroring. And when the new Apple TV App Store launched, Sketch Party TV was there on day one. And it had a good holiday season. Based on my analytics, the free version was played by about 250,000 people. And if you're interested, I wrote something on Medium about it. Actually, I have 2 pieces on Medium so far that go over the experience of developing it over the course of 5 weeks and in my rare spare time while working at my other job and getting it ready for the launch of the new Apple TV App Store. Then I also had a break between projects recently, and so I started working on my MASH app after having let it languish on the App Store for more than 2 years without an update. And then this is the new app preview video. It gives you a sense of what the gameplay is like. And this update fixes a lot of long-standing issues. Some of these are issues that have been in the app since I first wrote it for iPhone OS 2, and now we're on iPhone OS 9. And that was more than 7 years ago. Okay, so that's the abridged version of my experience so far with the App Store. It's been a roller coaster with highs and lows. In some ways, it's also been a battlefield with victories and losses, and I think that's true for any entrepreneur. I've been paying very close attention since the early days of the App Store, and I've learned to be ruthless in vetting app ideas and app-related, can I go back? Yes. App-related business opportunities. So if any of you here has an app-related business idea and need a realistic evaluation of your prospects on the market or the technology, please feel free to contact me. It may be that I pour water on your idea, or it may be that I say, this is a great idea, go for it. So, thank you. Oh wait, there's one more thing. I think we are going to try to play a quick game of Sketch Party TV. So I set it up ahead of time. Yeah, sure. Yes.
So all the apps that are downloaded or sold on the App Store, the developers can see how many times they're open, like how deep can you go?
Well, there are a number of metrics that Apple gives you. And then there are a number of third-party analytics services like Google that developers embed into their apps to track what screens people are visiting, how long they're on them, the same sorts of things that you would get from tracking a website. You set up events, you set up goals. Any of the apps that are in the top 1,000 are going to have some sort of analytics. Their businesses are completely based on optimizing for, certain flows. So. Yes.
What is the turnover from a free download to a paid one?
I mean, it really depends. In my experience, you can expect to see something like between 1% and 3% conversion, which is small. But if you have an app like Clash of Clans, which is one of those #1 free games, they have what are known as consumable purchases. So like you buy an in-game currency using real-world money, and then you run out of it and you have to do it again. Those types of games are making billions of dollars. I can answer any questions about the App Store. Yes, Greg.
What about like iOS version updates, and how do you keep up with that with your app development?
I mean, I have to admit, it's kind of like being on a treadmill. I mean, you're always having to keep abreast of what comes out of WWDC, or now it seems like even Apple is going to release more regular point releases that have big new features. Instead of doing like a big yearly release, which I think they'll still do, they're also going to do these intermediate releases. So.
But do they send you like a change log in advance?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, they're developer docs. Yep.
Okay. So you at least have some kind of advance notice so you can compare against your code.
Not that much advance notice. So I said that I worked on Sketch Party TV for the new Apple TV, and it took 5 weeks. We were given 6 weeks. Like anyone besides like the blessed developers like Electronic Arts or somebody who got their apps into the Apple TV App Store on day one, who had been demoed at the debut, got 6 weeks, and that is not a lot of time to develop a brand new app. So in my case, I was fortunate that I had already been thinking this is coming, but there were some people that I was surprised that they had gotten an app that quickly. So yes, they give advance notice, but it's typically measured in weeks, not in, you don't have like 6 months to plan some new features. You've got to be on top of it. And Apple typically rewards people who are on top of it. So, does that help?
Thank you.
Yeah. Yes, Josh? Joe?
What do you feel about like the HTML5 hybrid apps, like Ionic and
So refresh my memory on Ionic takes like HTML5 and
it's a whole
makes native.
but it's already
Okay. Okay. I think those are great. I've made apps using those sorts of frameworks. They're great for prototypes. You generally aren't going to find apps in like the top tiers of the App Store that have been made that way. And I think Facebook is famous for having developed most of their app in HTML5 and then backpedaling and saying, no, we really can't do what we need to. Your best bet is to stick with, I'm guessing you have experience with HTML5 and you're wondering, like I was, how to justify all of this knowledge that I have about HTML5. Your best bet is to just learn how to develop native apps, if that's what you want to do.
Who wants to play? We need one person to draw.
Oh yeah, we can do that. Now, I know all of the
All right,
words.
come on out.
Good, man, go. Yes. I have had 2 drinks.
The more you drink, the better you play.
That's enough.
Now, are you okay with drawing using a figure, or do you need, like, I think I might have a stylus.
No, I'm good. One finger. It's fine. I can't believe I
Listen,
chosen for this.
let's do a sobriety test first with that one finger.
All right, we're just going to play quick. We're going to choose a word list. Let's do,
Who's on the opposing team? Is it? Am I playing against you?
I think we're just going to have him draw and everyone's going to try and guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, now don't worry, because these are the kids mode words.
Oh, thank God.
All right. It's going to be 3 words.
I do
you-
3?
Yeah,
Okay.
it'll cycle through them.
Okay.
And so you're listening for people
So
to say it. You draw anywhere. You'll hit ready. Draw anywhere. And when someone says the word that you're supposed to be drawing, you hit the got it button.
1, 2, 3, go. Uh-oh. Balloon. Clam.
Light bulb.
Hit the green button.
Oh, come on.
It's a clam.
It's a line.
Piece of thread. Keep up.
I'm already messing up.
A skull and crossbones.
It's a ninja star.
Scissors. Yeah. All right. Yeah, all right. I know every word in this game. I'm just trying to keep these moving along.
Yeah, right.
It's a mountain.
Mountain shark. Lake. Brass knuckle. Lake. Yes.
It's a button, yeah.
What is that?
All right, so you're gonna do again or what? Should we have someone else draw?
Somebody else.
Don Miller.
Do one more set.
No good at beer now.
I swear, if you played this once, you had lace in there.
Lace. I can draw.
You thought Danny P was bad.
I can draw.
Much worse.
It's a dinosaur.
Holy crap.
iPad.
Oh, it's a
I've
tie.
never done this well.
Oh, it's a tie.
Thanks, Don.
Get 'em all.
So then, if you guys aren't familiar with this game, you can go back and review the drawings and send them out and embarrass your friends. So that's Sketch Party TV. Thanks.
Hang on. We've got one more thing. See, I thought I was going to get to say it tonight.
You can say
So-
one more thing, one additional thing.
So it's been this is the second time Matt has spoken to this group, and we felt we were overdue for a little redux. And Matt, it's our pleasure to present to you the Etch-a-Sketch that was used in this week's video. When all else fails, you still have this.
Thank you.
All right?
When all else fails. Now, I really think maybe not the least you could have done, but you could have signed your name or made a spoke logo.
But it had been gone in 2 seconds. So,
No, it's
Yeah.
too thick.
so thank you. Thank you
pro.
for coming. So Matt's going to hang out for a little bit. We ask you all to do the same. I'm getting blind. You can answer more questions
Sure.
while we mix and mingle. Thank you again for coming. We're going to see you next month, but not back here. Oh. Where are we going, Gene? Well, you just have to find out, right? So sign up. Get on the mailing list. We'll announce within another 6 days. All right? Thank you for coming.